Okay, so let's get right to it. The third thing we need is the image type, so what format it is. So img type is going to be equal to image request dot headers, because this information lives in the headers of the actual request or the response. So maybe this should be called image response, but anyway. And this is going to be content type. Okay. Okay, so let's say now cloud storage path is equal to, and here's where we need to, use the bucket. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it in here as a string. Okay, and now, so you see I'm doing it without the GS, okay? We'll append the GS later, and now we can simply substitute. So the first term here will simply be, since we don't have a username, and I think it's just easier if we use parser, for example, instead of, trying to slice the URL and extract the food.com out of it. So I'm just going to say parser. So this is what will go in here, which actually, we can simply just type it in here. And like that, we don't have to do so much string substitution. And the second item will be the actual image title. So it's the MD5 of the image URL, okay? Okay. Now we need to provide the actual full cloud storage path. So I'm actually going to rename my variable, sorry for this. I'm going to say this is path from bucket. And here I'm going to say this is going to be the cloud storage path. Is equal to, now we can say the /gs and append the path from bucket, okay? Okay, so now we need the blob store key is going to be equal to, and here's where we will have to start to import all of the libraries, okay? So let's say from google.appengine.ext import blobstore, and then we can say from google.appengine.api import images. So remember we used images to get the to use the get serving URL method on the blob key to actually get the URL to serve the image. And finally we also need the cloud storage API. So and this is in lib, so from lib.cloudstorage import cloud storage API as, and we're going to simply give it a shorter name, GCS, Google Cloud Storage. Okay, so we're all set to go. So now the blob store key is going to be blob store create GS key, so Google storage key, and here we can simply pass in the cloud storage path, okay? Okay. So next we need to actually create the file. Okay, so now we know where we're going to save it, and we have a key to actually address that path, and so we can say cloud storage file is going to be equal to gcs.open, and here we need to provide a file name. And here is where we need to provide the name without the GS, the /GS, because if not, it will break. It doesn't accept that. So this is why we separated this into two elements, because now we can easily just call this path from bucket. And like that, we don't have to do any kind of, string slicing and all that, okay? The mode, so this will be write, so we need to type in a W, and the content type, which will be img type, okay? Okay, so that's that. Now we need to write the file. So here we basically created the file, and now we need to write the file. Okay, it's not equal to anything. We need to dot write it, the write method. And here we just put in the image content. Okay, and now we need to close the file, okay? Okay, good, so dot close. Now, this is maybe where the slightly confusing thing comes in, and this is because, you know, as I said before, I really wish that in the future we can do everything from the Google Cloud Storage library instead of having to pass through the Blob Store library and then the image library, okay? But, you know, this is what it is now. They're making, you know, big progress every single month. They're releasing updates to their SDK, so I think that's a good thing. But, you know, so, you know, we just have to deal with this and learn. It's not too difficult, but I can understand it's slightly confusing. Anyway, let's say blob store key is equal to blob store dot blob key, and here we need to pass in the blob store key we have already created. So we're essentially going to overwrite it. So basically we're just turning it into a actual blob key so that now we can call the get serving URL on it. Okay, because if it's not of this type, so if it's not a type of blob key, then our image.getServingURL wouldn't work. Okay, so let's say serving URL is equal to images.getServingURL, and we need to pass in the blob store key. Okay, so again, so this blob store key, which is now of blob key, of type blob store blob key, if we were to pass something else into this get serving URL, it wouldn't work. Here it expects a blobstore.blob key. Okay, so this is why we need to basically just convert it from this blobstore.createJS key. So this is not a blob key, it's another type of key. So we need to just overwrite it or maybe, you know, you could create another one also, but with simply another variable name. That will work too, but I'm just overwriting it because we no longer need this one. Okay, so now we just need to return everything. So return, and we can say photo URL, as we did before, is serving URL, and the photo key is going to be this blob store key. Okay, looks like we're all set to go. Let's test this, if this works. So now we just need to say, let's say photo object is equal to self.fetch image, and here we can type in the photo URL. Okay, everything looks good. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this now. Refresh, see what happens, fingers crossed. Okay, so it doesn't seem like anything is broken. So I'm going to check my admin, so localhost port 8000, data store viewer, and we need to go into the, see we have here blob info. So apparently we have saved our image. So I believe it's this image here because this is today's date. Okay, so I believe everything is working. And if we go to the blob store viewer, okay, great, this is our image. It's humongous, so that's why we can, you know, it's actually really huge. Anyway, so we can see our image saving is working. Okay, so this is fantastic because now we can actually go ahead and save the recipe, and because now we're just saving the image. This is one thing to note. You know, here we're in this function, we're actually saving the image. Whereas, you know, we're not yet sending the recipe to our add recipe function. Okay, so this is what we have to do now.